Good evening, everyone. My name is Oliver Maruda, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Whiskey List. And tonight is the fifth virtual whiskey show, all about world whiskies. So, yes, welcome. Letting a few people join on the different live streams from Facebook, YouTube as well. Welcome, everyone. Great to see the numbers joining. We've got four wonderful guests from three different time zones. I'll get to that in a second, but yeah, let's wait for a few of the viewers to join in. Yes, tonight we'll be chatting all about world whiskies. So this virtual live stream is thanks to the World Whiskey Show. Let me grab my orientation. Hopefully you all got your kits in the mail. 18 world whiskies, tasting glass, little sample bottle. They're all numbered, so yeah, try it at your own pace. Don't forget to download the Whiskey List app. Just search Whiskey List on iOS or Google Play and download the app. It's free to download. Rate your favorite whiskies. Tell us what you think, and then you can obviously buy any of the bottles as well. So welcome everyone who's joining. It's good to see some viewers in. Tonight we've got four beautiful faces of whiskey from all around the world. We've got Ian, Chang from Taiwan, Patrick from Millstone in the Netherlands, and Tal and Toma from Milk and Honey in Israel. So welcome everyone.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you, Oliver.
Thanks for joining us tonight. I know it's tonight in 7 o'clock here in Sydney, but I think it's 3 p.m. for you, Ian.
4 p.m.
4 p.m. now in Taiwan, and Patrick's just had his fifth or sixth coffee in the morning there in the Netherlands, and same as the guys in Israel there. I think 9 and 10 a.m. for you guys as well. So thank you for making the time on your busy Fridays to chat whiskey with us. Let's get into it. It's all about world whiskies for us. We found 18 whiskies that we wanted to show with Australians the diversity of whiskey that's found all around the world. But before we jump into some questions, I just wanted to go around the room and ask, when you're not drinking your own whiskey that you make, what whiskey do you normally drink in your glass? Ian, what fancies you?
Normally it's something lightly peated, and it can be blend or can be blended malt. So basically, I drink anything alcoholic.
Awesome. What about yourself, Patrick?
Oh, we're actually distilling lightly peated today, Ian. So you should come over and taste something straight from the still.
Next
time. I like most of us. I think most distillers like to try lots of different things to get ideas about what other distilleries are doing. I think that's part of what makes our profession so interesting, that you get to try so many different things. But I like really classic malt whiskies, like Macallans from the 50s and 60s are pretty amazing, I have to say.
We wish we could be drinking Macallans in the 50s and 60s every day. Nah, great. And Toma, how about yourself, mate?
Right, so we should send Ian our lightly peated and Patrick our classic. And as you can see, and just like Patrick, I'm drinking a lot of different things. I like to experience a lot and drink almost everything, but I also like a lot of world whiskies, as you can see behind me. Maybe someone recognized. And just like everyone at home, I'm drinking a lot of different whiskies.
Awesome. And Tal?
Yeah, Tal.
So what's in your glass normally?
A pint of lager. No, I'm just kidding. But I think as anyone else, we're trying a lot of stuff. But I think my go-to drums are. If Patrick was talking about old style Macallans, I like old style Kraganmores. And but yesterday I had a very, very interesting and nice drum. We talked about, it's not even a lightly peated, it's a different kind of peat from Santis in Switzerland. And it was a very interesting and a good whiskey.
Yeah, they're doing really nice stuff as well, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually tasted your whiskey when I was in Canada last time over. because I think we share the same importer in Canada. So,
yeah, in Alberta.
Yeah, in Alberta. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I tried your whiskey. It's awesome.
I think it was the younger versions, but yeah.
It was a young version. Yeah. This is when we could still travel. You know those days. Yeah,
when we were younger. Yeah, we were younger back then.
And this is why we've all had to catch up virtually. Normally we do these shows in the physical. So yeah, it's been a fantastic time to at least catch up, and even you guys can dial in from all around the world. But it seems like the whiskey world's a very small place. If you have the same distributors in Canada, it seems everyone knows each other already. One of our Facebook commenters, Mark, says you'd have to sell your distillery to drink Macallan from the 50s every day.
Yeah,
So
actually, yesterday I tried Mark's first release, and it's great also.
He didn't send me a bottle, Mark. I don't know what it is with Mark that he didn't send me a bottle.
I just wanted a T-shirt, and it didn't.
He just loves you better than me, I think. I don't know what it is.
And you've got a big Facebook fan, Ian. Someone's I'm not sure if you know Larry as well. He's a big Kavalan fan here in Australia. He's
Hello, Larry.
But yeah, let's jump into the first question. So it's all about world whiskies, and I just wanted to get an understanding. Maybe we can kind of walk around the room. Might start with you, Patrick. I think you've been distilling for the longest. Your distillery's been around for a few decades now, right?
Yeah, my father started the distillery, and he bought a piece of land in '74. So probably distillation started in '75 or something. So yeah.
And for those at home, it's the Millstone distillery in Netherlands as well. And what was it a family decision that you got into making whiskey? How'd that come about?
And my father used to make liqueurs mostly. That's where he started out with in '75. He did a lot of liqueurs. So I grew up in the distillery. So I spent my entire childhood cleaning stuff. This is what you do in distilleries. All you consumers have this wonderful romantic view about what it is to work in a distillery, but mostly it's about cleaning stuff. This is what my father beat into. Well, not beat into me, but everything has to be clean. That's important. And then when I finished university, I wanted to make Genever, which is our traditional Dutch drink, which is basically made like a whiskey, but then redistilled with some botanicals, and then you shove it in a barrel for 10 years, and you have something that tastes somewhere between whiskey and gin. And that's a very interesting drink, but it was mostly drunk here in Holland, so I thought, this was in the early 90s, I thought, I wanted to make whiskey because whiskey you can, was my personal favorite drink. So I like to drink whiskey. Back then, I drank a lot more than now these days, as probably most of us do. When you grow up, you tend to drink less. So in the early 90s, I started distilling whiskey because that is something I could sell all over the world. And then from there, it grew gradually.
That's awesome to hear. And what's kind of new that's going on in Millstone now? You guys, still operating during COVID? Have you guys shut down? What's kind of the plan now?
Well, thank God we kept operating. We keep improving the distillery. We built a big new warehouse last year for 10,000 casks, and we have installed 2 new pot stills this year, which this morning I filled the wash still with 17,000 liters of wash, so decent size stills. So in the hope we doubled capacity, so we have some more stock for future years.
Oh, it's good to hear you guys at least are growing. By the sounds of it, it's been a challenging year for I think everybody, but
yeah,
nice to hear it's growing. Over to yourself, Toma and Tal. How long has your distillery, Milk and Honey in Israel, been around for? How long have you guys been distilling for?
What? Oh, do you want?
You start.
All right. So Milk and Honey started by idea in 2012, and it started by 5 high-tech entrepreneurs. And we started distillation at the end of 2014. So it took about 2 years to settle all and to build the distillery and to find a place and everything. But just now we released, at the beginning of this year, we released the first whiskey, or the first commercial whiskey. And it was amazing to start with 2 countries, and then we stopped, or the COVID stopped us. But we are launching virtually, and get used to it.
So I think that Gal, the main owner, the owner and the founder, he fell in love with whiskey, and as he says, when we're drinking something, he says that instead he wanted a glass of milk, so he bought the whole cow instead of buying a case of whiskey. He established a distillery, and but he likes to be a pioneer. Israel is a very hectic place, so we are really fast thinkers and fast. We get bored very, very fast, and I think that the distillery is a part of that. No one thought that is going to be a whiskey distillery in Israel, because we don't have a patience for anything. But yeah, we just started launching in Holland. Holland was our first market. We started launching the first whiskey now in Amsterdam, actually in January, then Paris, and then everything got virtual. And if we're talking now, it's 10 o'clock in the morning here. We used to 5 o'clock in the morning. We're talking to San Francisco, so it's a kind of hard with the hours now. And we miss flights. We miss flights.
You launched your own whiskey in Australia as well this year, I believe, as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
we did, and we had the first one, the classic, and then the 3 elements. It's a series called the Element series, which is red wine, cask, lightly peated cask actually, and sherry. And I think we ran out in like 2 seconds from one of them, and the lead time from Tel Aviv to Australia is around 2 months or something like that. So it takes time. So I hope something is on its way now. So
keep sending cases. We'll keep drinking it here. Whiskey number 7 in your sample kits is the Milk and Honey Classic. So jump onto that one as well. And then Patrick, I've lost your. Where is it here? Whiskey number 16 is the Millstone Peated PX Cask. We're drinking tonight from your distillery. But Ian, recently rectired master blender from Kavalan. What's keeping you busy these days?
So I left Kavalan, right before the pandemic really started. So these days I run my own consultancy. So luckily that I have a few clients in hand now to work with. So that's something that's keeping me busy. Hopefully we will announce something soon, next month. I mean, definitely by Christmas. So resurfacing, coming soon to a cinema near you. Yeah.
Love it.
You are a bit of a tease, yeah?
Yes, we haven't announced it publicly, yet. So I cannot say anything right now. But
you're opening your own distillery.
Sorry?
You're opening your own distillery.
Not my own, but someone who I was very lucky, to be able to co-found the distillery with. Yeah.
That's awesome to hear. And we'll
wait.
Yes.
Yeah, hopefully in a month's time we'll hear the wonderful news. Ian's back in making whiskey.
It's only the 5 of us, Oliver. It's only the 5 of us. You can tell us.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody hears.
I'll tell you later.
So, Ian, let's jump into some technical questions, because I think the whiskey drinkers at home are keen to understand. Obviously, whiskies, there's the old world and new world component, but distilling in such a tropical climate as Taiwan, that must have been challenging for a number of reasons. How did you? What are some of those challenges, first of all, and then how did you overcome them?
Right. Yeah, I think it was very similar to what Tomer and Tao was saying just now. I think when they decided to build a distillery in Israel, I think people were really surprised, and it was similar to my previous employer about 16 years ago when they decided to open a distillery in Taiwan. But basically, as Jim Swan, would always tell you that making whiskey, and I was talking to Patrick just now, making good whiskey is about the combination of everything. It's the cask, the water, the raw ingredients, and everything. When you combine everything together and you pay attention to details, I'm sure you can produce quality whiskey in Netherlands, in Israel, and also in everywhere else in the world. So that is something that that I learned for the past 16 years with Dr. Swan, and also with the distillery of Kavalan that I used to work with. Mm-hmm.
You made some amazing whiskeys, Ian.
No, thank you. I mean, your whiskey is also amazing, and also Comrade and Tom's as well.
Yeah, but yours are truly awesome, I have to say.
Thank you.
And I think from our point of view, what Ian and Kavalan did was opening the road for everyone else.
Thank you. We were really lucky to have Jim. Jim was the person that was really behind everything that we used to do. So I would say that the foundation of Kavalan is laid down very well. So I think in the future, I'm sure they will continue to produce something amazing, just like Patrick and Tomer are doing in Netherlands and Israel.
Yeah, Jim's paved the world for a lot of New World distilleries and set the tone. Quick question around maturation in Taiwan. Do you guys lose a lot of alcohol or a lot of water, each year?
Yes, we tend to lose more alcohol than water. So after maturation, the strength tends to go up slightly. Go down slightly instead of going up like in Kentucky, where it is much drier. Taiwan is very humid, so we lose more alcohol than water. Yeah.
And what about yourself, Toma? Are you experience the same? You're basically in a desert, right?
We are not in the desert, but talking about Jim Swan, so yes, Israel is a hot and humid country, so it's very similar to what happens in Taiwan. But also what Jim Swan really liked about Israel, and we worked with Jim Swan from the beginning also, was that Israel is a really nice playground of climate zones. We have 5 different climate zones in this tiny country. So we can put casks in 5 different warehouses, and it matures differently. And it's really, first, we can experience, we can learn from it. And then it's very interesting to see differences and to learn each climate zone.
I think that if you're talking about water versus alcohol, in Tel Aviv, we're not in a desert. Tel Aviv is a Mediterranean city. We're just see that behind me here, and so we are just down at the beach. It's very hot and humid summers. It's around 36 degrees, even 30 outside right now. And so it's 36 degrees and can go up to 90% humidity. The winters are not very cold. It never snows, goes down to maybe 10 degrees, but it's very dry. So if you look at the ABV, it goes up and down all over the year, because when it's so humid outside, you lose more alcohol. When it's dry, you lose more water.
And does that interrupt when you actually bottle as well?
Yeah, sometimes it's you need to check it and do sometimes different blends to get to the same bottling, same batch.
But sometimes we find casks that went up in ABV, and sometimes we find casks that went down. It depends on which warehouse and in which period of the year we're emptying the cask.
But it's the same location, but different warehouses. Just 50 meters one from the other, and it's different.
That's curious how climate affects everything. But I was going to say, if you have 5 different climate regions, would you ever experiment with aging whiskey in different climate regions as well, or is it just all in the same location?
So I think most of our casks are in Tel Aviv. The distillery is just 5 minutes walk from the beach, so hot and humid. But then we have, if you go, Tel Aviv is like 0 elevation, and then you go 1 hour, you're up in Jerusalem, which is 750 meters above sea level. We're going to experiment there. Or you have the Upper Galilee or the Sea of Galilee. Upper Galilee is around 1,500 meters. Sea of Galilee is minus 200 meters below sea level. But I think, and we have some casks there, but I think the most interesting one is the project we're doing at the Dead Sea, which is the lowest place in the world, minus 428 meters below sea level. And you don't want to go to the angel share there, but it can go up to 50 degrees in the summer, and air pressure is very high because it's so low, very hot, very dry, and the air is actually heavy. So I don't know, Tomer, what do you think about those guys in the casks? They're crazy.
They are crazy and interesting, and I don't say that it's good for whiskey, but you have to learn how to work with it, and it's a tool that we have to mature there. About talking about the angel share, so in Tel Aviv we measure around 11% in average, and at the Dead Sea it can reach even 25% a year. So we are not able to mature full maturation at the Dead Sea. We have to bring cask for 1 year and then bring them back to the distillery.
Yeah, wow. It's so much diversity in climates just between two countries, and even in your local regions. Patrick, what about the Netherlands? How's climate affect your distillery, your whiskey?
Yeah, I think it's not as extreme as my other friends here. Our angel share is between 4 and 6% in normal years. Though we had 2 really warm years the past 2 years, so angel share in some casks was up to 10-11% in some of the casks. My new warehouse has a humidifier system, so it keeps the air humidity at a constant level. So because we've been doing this for a while, though I really love experimentation, it's also nice to have predictability in your casks. So you put them away and you have some idea how they're going to taste 12 years from now when you try to bottle them. So experimentation was really nice in the early years, but I loved it. It's awesome to do all these experiments, but it's also important to have production and have stock that you can rely on, that you are sure it's going to make good whiskey 10, 12 years from now.
Yeah, it's a good point about
variation of hard.
Yes, it does. I have that with my early casks as well. When I look at my casks from the 90s, the early 90s, you see some awesome casks and some awful casks, and they are intermixed. And I have to look back into my notes to see what did I do back then to produce it like that. But yeah, you live and learn in this business. I think the big experience is also a part of what we do, and part of the fun is that you learn from your mistakes, mostly, I'm afraid.
We've got a few questions coming in from some Facebook users. David asks, what's the oldest Millstone release? The oldest we've seen here in Australia is 12 years old. Is there any others out?
Yeah, that's a 96. That's from American oak, and there's a 96s from sherry casks, of course. I have a little bit of a thing with sherry casks, I'm afraid. So I tend to do a lot of sherry casks. About 60% of my stock is in sherry, I think. So yeah, my brother seems to think I have an obsession with sherry casks. But yeah. So yeah,
there's nothing wrong with sherry casks. They're delicious.
He prefers American oak. So
okay. Next question from the audience, and I'll throw this over to Tomer. Is are world whiskey producers concerned about the quality of their products being affected due to the distance temps exposed during, especially transport, Tel Aviv to Australia, for example?
So we are trying to avoid this, and after we are bottling, we check the whiskeys in different conditions, and after that we send it. Sometimes things happen, and try to avoid it.
I don't think that the problem is inside the container on the way to on the way to Australia, because it's a 46 ABV bottle, and we just really we pack it like hell. But it's the problem was actually in Poland or Russia in the winter, to see, because we don't chill filter, so sometimes you go, the truck takes it in -20 and it's getting hazy. So we had a problem with a 40% new make that we shipped to Poland, and then reached there, it was really hazy inside, and you see the sediments inside because it's a chill filter. So I told him, throw it away, we'll send you 50%, and it was okay.
You don't even think about global logistics and the conditions product needs to be shipped with, but it's all learnings, right?
The biggest headache.
All right, let's keep the conversation going. Global whiskey regulations obviously vary per country. Scotland's got minimum 3 years. America's got very strict rules around theirs as well. Different casks, virgin oak. Australia, we make whiskey here, but it's minimum 2 years in oak. Quite a lot of experimentation is happening here. But Ian, what's the whiskey laws or regulations in Taiwan like?
I mean, the regulations here in Taiwan are very similar to that of the UK and also the EU. So the minimum maturation here is also, I mean, it's slightly less. It's only 2 years. But apart from that, everything is, the same as what they do in Europe. It has to be old cask, and also no extra additives can be allowed except caramel, which is okay for coloring. But the producers here in Taiwan, they don't really use caramel because it's not necessary. The hot weather drives the color out of the wood very easily, so caramel is not really necessary in this part of the world. I believe it's similar for Tomer and Tao in Israel. Yeah.
You don't need the caramel to make it darker, but we do have some differences in color in the continuous expressions. So
yeah, we all have that. I think that's one of the things. If you don't color, you do get a little bit of variation in color.
Yeah. So, but we are not coloring at all. We just accept the tiny differences that I don't think anyone will mention if he doesn't take 2 different bottles from different batches and check them in front of the light. So no need.
Our whiskeys are suntan. This one is 3.5 years old, so you don't need to color anything here.
No.
I'm not sure about global audiences, but the Australian consumer, we prefer our whiskeys to be as simple, back to the original sort of ingredients as possible, especially with a lot of craft producers. If you have to color your whiskey, there might be a bit of a perception, what are you hiding? It's all around transparency is a very big topic for the Australian whiskey consumer at the moment. So yeah, it's great to hear that you guys aren't doing any sort of coloring.
No, I think it would be nice if everybody had an obligation to put the caramel coloring on the label. So, it's fine that it's allowed, but it would be nice if it's on the label for everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
So what's the regulations down in Israel there, Tal? Is it 2 years, 3 years?
We don't have any specific regulations. We have the standards, but it's not. They don't check the production in Israel. So we voluntarily decided from the beginning to follow the SWA rules or regulations, and that's how we produce. So we adopted the Scotch rules.
I think that one of the first thing was that because we were the first Israeli whiskey distillery, there are 2 more now, but we were the first and the biggest. So we needed to actually go and try to make regulations for us, because we wanted to follow the Scottish regulations since day one, because we were aiming global. And I think that until we launched the Classic this January, we were selling just a preview. We called it a young single malt without the word whiskey on it. And of course, when you reach France, you have to call it something different. And when you reach England, it's supposed to be young single malt aged spirit or something like that. But then when we started selling in America, they call it whiskey. And we didn't want them to call it whiskey. So it was a 2-year-old, and we decided of a very good name, Whiskey in Bloom, because it's going to be whiskey. It's just blooming now. And until this whiskey, we just sold Whiskey in Bloom. But the thing is that every country with its regulation code, it's different. So now it's okay because we finally have whiskey. And I guess the regulations are going to start in Israel. No one is actually checking nothing in Israel. We're doing other stuff probably, but there is a very old wine culture here, but not whiskey.
But Oliver, you have to understand that it's not just the country where you produce it, where you have to stick to the regulations. It's also the country where you export to, where you have to stick to the regulations. So if you stick to, for example, SWA sort of regulations, at least that makes it easy for you to export your products all over the world.
Definitely. That's
right.
It's
a really interesting point. We Australians, we drink everything we drink locally. So I think there's 2 or 3 Australian distilleries, maybe 3 or 4 doing a bit of export at the moment. But yeah, most of the product that we make here we just don't make enough liters per year to keep up with the demand here. But I imagine all 3 of you have had quite big and large domestic and international export markets. So there's challenges in global demand. You guys mentioned you both share the same supplier in Canada, but yeah, there's obviously different challenges coming for the export market. Patrick, what are some of the learnings there? Do you guys is it complicated per different countries, or because you're using the same sort of rules, EU, makes it easier?
Within the EU, the labeling rules are all the same, so that makes it easy within the EU. If you have an EU-proof label, you can sell it anywhere in the EU. But then when you export to countries outside of the EU, you'll have to stick to the labeling rules that are applicable in that country. So the US, of course, you have a different bottle size. You have to use 750 milliliter bottles instead of 700 that we do here in Europe. You have to put things on the label differently sometimes. Even the ABV, how you write the alcohol percentage on the label, differs from country to country. Some countries don't allow you to use dots between alcohol by volume. Some do. It's a situation where you live and learn.
Good to hear. Next question. I guess what are some of the challenges in terms of setting up a brand new distillery, being the first in Israel, Tomer and Tal? How did you guys even start off doing that? I imagine there would have been quite a different heavy wine culture you mentioned, but being the first distillery would have had its own challenges.
Tomer?
Yes. So from day one, we aimed global, as Tal said. And I must say that in Israel, people they didn't accept us really good from day one. So it was a challenge to make the Israeli people accept and buy and try the whiskeys that we produce. But globally, I think the challenges are to compete with I don't call it compete, but you have a lot of variations and a lot of whiskeys and a lot of small and new distilleries. And also you have big companies that sell most of the whiskeys, and you have to make it interesting so people will try it and buy it. And I think that's the biggest challenge, to keep innovative and interesting so people will buy.
I think the challenges for establishing the factory or the distillery was great, because when we are in Tel Aviv, so it's a city. You need to do something with the city to get the authorities, to get their approvals and everything. And no one actually, what the hell are you doing, guys? And this was, our building was a very big bakery, I think 20 years ago, like for bread for supermarkets. So it's a huge one. We actually stayed with grains, and but then they need to approve it, and the health inspectors and this and that, and they don't know anything what to do with this and those casks, and there's like 3,000 casks. So just think about the fire department, what they need to approve it. And so it was all from scratch. We needed to walk with them and to walk them through the process with us. And the good thing that Jim Swan was with us, Dr. Jim Swan was with us, so he had the knowledge of doing it before that. But Israeli bureaucracy is a kind of different, and because they didn't have any past with this, they didn't have any knowledge with building a distillery. And to continue what Tomer said, no one really, if we're talking about export whiskey from Israel, really, you guys are making whiskey, and who do you think you are? And I think that this is why I said in the first place that Kavalan, Ian Chang, and Dr. Jim Swan for us was something like a ticket to get into the big boys club, and to get in, and this was like a seal of approval. If Dr. Jim Swan worked with you and he worked with Kavalan, we can try and we can talk about you.
No, that's a really good point. I've got a question here from YouTube. I'll just put it up on the screen. Colin, this is for you, Patrick. Scotland is known for its peat. So I don't actually think peat when thinking about the Netherlands. Where do you source yours from?
Well, actually, the Netherlands has shitloads of peat. Almost unlimited quantities of peat. The big problem is not the peat itself, because we are a low country with lots of water, so we have loads and loads of peat everywhere. The problem is getting somebody to malt it for you. So we grow the barley ourselves, and then you have to bring it to a maltings to have it malted. And I have to say the big problem that I encountered is that I don't get any Dutch maltings to actually want to make a peated malt for me. So the peated malt, though we grow most of the grains for the distillery ourselves, the peated malt actually comes from Scotland, I'm afraid. Well, no, not I'm afraid. That's where it comes from. So they got we buy from Crisps or from Beards peated malt, and they make awesome peated malt, and we just get truckloads in, and then when the truckload is finished, they order the new one.
Is that the same for yourself, Ian? With any peated whiskies locally, is it all sort of malted overseas?
That's right. Similar to what Patrick said just now, we also have some peats in Taiwan. But the thing is, no one knows how to malt the barley and also to smoke the barley. So the easiest way is to buy your malted barley already peated, and normally, Patrick mentioned all the major suppliers. So these are normally what I recommend to my clients as well. If they
There's only a handful of them.
Peated whiskey. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Let's
But unless
please go ahead.
Unless you really want to mention the terroir, then you do your local barley and also you peat your own barley. But I'm sure you can do that in not big quantity. It's mostly for marketing and also tourism purposes. But if you really want to have economy of scale, you buy from the big major suppliers.
Yeah, big maltings. Yeah,
that's right. The maltsters. Mm-hmm.
I wanted to put up an image up on screen quickly. So I've got a picture of yourself here, guys. We've just put our logo inside your cask. But for those at home, and feel free, whoever wants to talk about it, there's a type of cask called STR, I believe. Tomer, do you want to explain what that means for viewers at home?
So STR, it's a technique to treat casks that I think, Ian, it was developed by Dr. Jim Swan for Kavalan at the beginning. And it means shave, toast, and recharge. And that's a technique that you do mostly on ex-wine casks. And I think the idea behind it is to make the really quick and the really intense maturation to try and make it better. And with this technique, it makes it better. It gives a lot of character at the beginning, and it breathes, it oxidates really quick because of the charring and the alligator skin inside. The wood really breathes, and it balances really quick.
Ian,
Sure, you have a lot to add.
Yes. So basically, what Tomer has just mentioned, initially, I think it was back in 2008 or 2007, when Kavalan just started to produce whiskey for about 2 or 3 years' time. And there was a problem of finding refill casks from Scotland or from around the world, because everyone wants to keep their own refill casks for more maturation. So in order to solve the problem, Jim and I, we thought, why not use ex-wine casks and then do the shaving, toasting, and recharring to make sure that you rejuvenate the wood. And that's why the maturation goes much faster once you put the new make into the cask, because the wood is very active, so you can have very quick maturation, especially in terms of extraction, very quickly. So with STR casks, the color is always very dark, with only 6 months to 1 year time of maturation. So I don't know if Patrick also uses STR in Netherlands.
Oh, actually, because you make such great whiskey with some of those STR casks, I actually bought some a couple of years ago to experiment with. So that is your doing, actually. But my question is, if the extraction is so big, Ian and Tomer, maybe you can answer that as well. If the extraction is so big, how do you balance it in the whiskey? So do you use refill STRs as well in the blends, or do you just use first fill STRs, or how do you balance the big wood flavors with the whiskey?
So far, yes, it is really intense, and most of the times STR are not suitable, in my opinion, to be bottled as single cask, because it's too intense, and you must find some really good casks.
The balance.
So most of the times I use it as a component inside the blend. In the classic, it's around 20%, and it adds really nice color and body, and it adds also wood notes and the spicy notes that STR has.
And how about the tannins, Tomer?
So in 20%, you don't feel a lot of tannins inside the blend. It's not so tannic after 3 years. So it's just the perfect combination with to be based on the ex-bourbon casks.
Because we use first fill French oak casks for some of our whiskeys, but it's impossible for me to actually use first fill French oak cask for a whiskey. I can use maybe a little bit in a blend, but I have to balance the first fill French oaks always with refills French oaks to make my French oak matured whiskey, because otherwise it's just too heavy on the tannins and maybe too astringent in the mouth.
Yeah, so it's always a matter of blending. If it's too tannic, you put less, and then you balance it.
Sorry, Oliver, we're doing a bit of a distillery course here.
I love it. I love sharing the knowledge, please. That's why we're all here.
There was one more thing about the STR. The STR it's working like hell in the first year, and then it's like it balances. So, we are a new distillery. We just reached 3 years in the last year, so we have some 3-year-old STRs which we tasted after 6 months. It was great. After 1 year, it was too tannic, and now I think after 3 years,
the tannic.
We could see single casks from this. We could see single casks from that.
Because my French oak does balance. The tannins will moderate a bit, but they will still be quite astringent over time. So the virgin oak French casks will always be mixed in with refill French oak to get a balanced whiskey. So how do you do it, Ian? Oh, sorry.
My another recommendation to you, similar to what Homer and Tao mentioned, instead of doing the blending, perhaps you can try just the finish. Use STR cask. At the end, for example, if you intend to mature your whiskey for 12 years, maybe at the 11th year, you then switch it to STR for the final year. That is another way to do it as well. Yeah.
But I'm a big fan of full maturations. Yeah.
Okay.
No, we express a lot
Not
with
you have
finishes.
to blend it like Tomer.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've got another question coming from the YouTube, from the app. Lots of talk around casks, which we all love casks, obviously. But what style of spirit do each of you look for in your whiskies? I'll head over to Ian first.
The style that I look for, I mean, not necessarily style, but I think balance. Balance is really important. Whenever you produce a whiskey, get the balance right, so that you have something that is more rounded and complex, and also not just one particular flavor that is very very strong or very distinctive. You need to have something that is more all round, like a crystal ball. That is my advice to producers.
Awesome. What about yourself, Patrick?
I think balance is everything. So yeah, like Ian said, your new make has to be balanced. There has to be also layers of flavors in your new make. So you have to have fruity flavors, you have to have body, and you have to have maybe some peat smoke or not. But all these flavors have to be balanced already in the new make. So no matter what you do, that balance has to be there in the new make already. If you're just making new make and then shoving it in a barrel, I don't think that is a way to make great whiskey. Maybe you can make drinkable whiskey that way, but not great whiskey. If you want to make great whiskey, I think the balance has to be there in the new make. So you have to work on your fermentation times, your yeast, your temperatures in the fermentation. So we do temperature controlled fermentations, for example. So we can stretch the fermentation to 7 days or 8 days for the malt whiskey. So we have these nice fruity flavors that you get from these long fermentations. It's fucking awful for your yield though, but it's good for your fruit flavors in your new make. And so all these things you have to be balanced in the new make already before you can make great whiskey out of it. I think you're on mute.
Yeah.
Sorry. What ABV do you put your new make into the casks, Patrick?
60.
60? Okay. What about yourself, Ian?
At Kavalan, they do it just slightly lower than 60.
All right.
So,
and Tal?
63 point, 64, 64.5.
63.
Okay.
60.
So
Very, very classic Scotch. Yes.
So actually, at the beginning, we checked, we filled cask at different ABVs, and the cask that I most like were 63.5. So we kept with that.
Yeah, different filling strength give you different maturations.
Yeah, of course.
And different yeast and different cut. So yeah.
And what about yourself, Tal? When you're I guess what style of spirit do you guys look for before you when you're making your new make?
So for us, it's now we're experimenting with all kinds of different kind of yeast, but usually we cut very high and very short, between 80 and 70% alcohol.
Cool.
And so it's thick, it's fruity, and if Patrick talked about the layers, so you have fruitiness and you have some pastry notes, and you have some very round and oily, and I think it probably because of the line arms that goes down at 45 degrees, and because of the high cut. So it's great for us because if the Scots are saying that their casks are sleeping, our casks are working, and Ian knows what it is. It's you put it in the cask and then it starts. It's hot, it's humid, and then so you need something. You need a very full-bodied, fruity, and flavorful new make to fight with this kind of climate.
So how high do you cut, Tal? What ABV do you cut?
The
80.
one that who cuts is Tomer.
No, but we cut from 80% to 70%.
Right.
That's
In
the heart.
between.
In between, yes. That's the heart.
Yeah.
Cut in
So-
80, cut out.
Yeah,
70.
we cut the unpeated at 68 and the peated at 64.
Yeah, also the peated barley we are cutting lower because
Yeah.
if we want a lot of peatiness.
It's still high if you compare it to the Scotch, yeah, which cut the
Yeah.
peated sometimes at 55
I'm
or
I'm
even
not
50
going
sometimes.
55 like Lafroig, I
No.
think, but it will be somewhere around 66, 67.
So for those at home new to whiskey, very quick process. You just take barley, water, yeast, you mash it, you ferment it. It turns into a beer basically without hops. You double distill it. And then when they're talking about the hearts here, you've got the heads, the hearts, and the tails. You don't want the beginning and the end of the heads and the tails of the distillation run because there's a lot of heavy flavors, acetone, things that you don't want to drink, poisons as well. You want to take the heart. So they're talking about when do they actually take that heart of the distillate run. But no spirit is wasted. They just put it back into the next batch and the next batch. Yeah. So that's whiskey making 101 in 30 seconds. Hopefully I got it right, guys.
Yeah. So where did you cut, Ian?
Sorry, Patrick.
Where did you cut in your production schedule?
My previous employer, they do it at a lower range. They do it normally between mid 60s to upper 50s.
Oh, that's very low.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, because I think for the weather, the climate in Taiwan, Jim Swan's advice was, that's the better alcoholic strength for the humid and hot climate.
So you get a very rich new make then.
Yeah, it's relatively heavier, in terms of the weight of the body. Yeah.
Yes. So you wouldn't have to have a sample of that because that would be interesting to taste.
Now I left, the distillery, but in the
you didn't sneak out a sample.
As you can see, I'm a very honest person.
I still want to take your new make, Tomer. I think that sounds very interesting to cut so high.
I'll be happy.
Yes.
Wanted to jump in. We had a comment from Facebook here. Kavalan Virgin Oak is the best work yet. So Ian, the maybe for viewers at home, what is the Virgin Oak? And we've talked about different cask types here. What was kind of the thinking behind that?
Right. To be honest, personally, I find Kavalan Virgin Oak a little bit too heavy, too woody. In other words, I would say a little bit tannic. But initially that was intended for blending purpose. When we blend the single malt by blending different types of casks. And Virgin Oak was designed to add more wood flavors to the single malt whiskey that the expressions. But it was only, I think, last year or the year before when La Maison de Whisky, when they want to have a special edition for Paris Whiskey Live, I think it was 2019 or 18, I can't remember now. So they decided to do a Virgin Oak, and if you try it, the color is really dark. It's almost like
black. It was like a black whiskey. It looks like soy sauce,
like Coca-Cola or soy sauce.
Yeah. I have one bottle here, and I saw you at the specific show, Ian, and I told you that I think that it's too intense and almost undrinkable. It's really hard to drink it.
It's
some kind of.
That's right. Something that I would describe as OTT, a little bit over the top. With the wood characters. That is almost designed as like a soy sauce for
flavoring agent.
Yes.
Seasoning. Yeah.
So seasoning.
We've got another Facebook user here saying, when you're not enjoying your own creations, what's your dram of choice? What's on your top shelf at home? Tal, we'll kick off with you first.
What was the last thing I had? Actually, a rye whiskey from Chicago. I really like it. So yeah, it was after when I get up and go to the distillery and I have shitloads of things to do, and then Tomer comes to me. We have to taste those casks, and we have to do this, and we have to do that. You go back home. You either want a lager or just something that is different than what you tasted the whole day. So yeah, I had a very nice rye whiskey from Chicago.
Nice. And Tomer?
Well, yeah, I don't drink my whiskeys at home. I like to experience a lot, so I really like Talisker. I have some Port Ellen opened here, and I really like to taste a lot of New World whiskeys. Cotswolds Lakes, Kavalan, of course, the Millstone, and all New World whiskeys. I think I tried a lot, and I will try more.
We have a bottle of Millstone at the distillery. We just had, we had a drum next to the stills a few weeks ago, I think.
I think we sent you this picture.
Yeah. It's awesome.
What about yourself, Patrick?
I have to say, what did I last have? A glass of Balvenie Ton 1401, I think it was. I don't know which batch it was, but it was, yeah. In our business, we get presents from friends in the business. They say, "Oh, you have to try this," so they give you a bottle of that to try at home. So yeah, we tried lots of different stuff. Like I think most of us do.
It's awesome to hear. And yeah, there are some perks of the trade. When you're not cleaning the stills, you get to sample some. What about yourself, Ian?
Recently, I'm very fond of lightly peated whiskies. So, Procladic, Coila, you name it. Basically, peated whiskey. That is something that I drink a lot recently.
But Talisker is very good as well, eh?
Yes, that's right.
That's good.
And I know Tomer produces very nice, peated expression from milk and honey. Yes.
You've been hiding that from me.
I'll send you that also.
This was the one that was sold out in a day in Australia. So sorry, guys. It's on the way.
Well, you got a good importer here in Holland. I'm sure they will send me a bottle.
Have you guys tried the whiskey number 14? Is a peated from Scotland, the new wee beastie.
I haven't tried that, but
it's a very good one.
I think it shows something. Peated whiskies can be bottled younger because the peat hides a lot, and it makes it easier a lot of times to bottle earlier. I think peat
and also it's got layers, eh, Tomer? The peated whiskey's got lots of layers, and then
of course,
makes it easy when it's younger age to bottle it.
I think peat in whiskey is like hops in beer. If you have a lot, it covers a lot, and of course you have complexity and the layers in peated whiskies. But peated whiskies mostly can be bottled earlier.
Yeah, but do you have to cut the middle cut a bit high? Because if you cut very low, it needs a long time in the barrel again to mature.
Ian, you mentioned lightly peated whiskies, so the very high ppm ones, not a fan of them, or just too much peat there?
Yeah, I think when the ppm is too high, when the phenolic level is too high,
so you don't get complexity. Right. You get one-dimensional whiskey if you don't careful.
That's right.
It's like you go into a restaurant, you order a steak, and it comes with the sauce on it. So there's someone is trying to hide something with the meat. So it's the same thing. Of course, you have fabulous expressions of very peaty whiskeys, but if you feel the back, if you see the layers,
and then let's don't forget the character that add from the casks. You can play a lot with peat in casks and different casks.
That's right.
Yeah, because it's so strong, you have a lot of options with the casks as well. It's like Ian was saying that he didn't like his virgin oak whiskey, but But for example, if you have a really big new make, like for my rye whiskey before, for example, I put it in virgin oak, and it turns out extremely well in virgin American oak because it's such a big-bodied whiskey. It can take the virgin oak very well.
And you have cold climate.
Yes, I think the
climate is good.
virgin oak works too hard in hot climate, and we also have some virgin oaks, but it's only for blending. I don't imagine myself release any virgin oak as single cask.
Try to make a rye whiskey with it.
I'll try.
We'll talk later.
Yeah.
I love the sharing of knowledge here. I've got another question coming in from Facebook from Chris. For each of you, if you were to choose one cask to be sent over to Australia from your distillery, what cask would it be? Patrick?
Ooh. Hey, you should never ask a parent which of his children he likes best. This is a bit difficult question. I'm guessing a rye whiskey from an Oloroso sherry cask, because it's got a different flavor profile than my normal rye whiskey, which is always virgin oak. So a rye whiskey from an Oloroso cask, I think, would be interesting to try.
All right. Tal, next for you.
I think, and I already sent David and Ian in Australia a sample, but I think our next tier is one that is really, if you look at the Israeli DNA, is the pomegranate wine cask. And I think that we have a pomegranate winery in Israel. They're making wines out of, it's not actually fruit wines, but dry and oh, there you go. And then, port style fortified sweet wines. And we're using their cask. So this is something really Israeli because we eat a lot of pomegranates. It grows here. And
it doesn't grow in Holland.
No, we have, come and take it. And so I think that this is an expression that is really something, it's us. And I would like to share it with you guys.
Oh, we can't wait to when's that one landing?
Beginning of the year, beginning of next year. I hope so. I speak to Ian first. Yeah.
Every market, I think, has different palate and different things that the people likes. So to each market, we send a few samples, and the importer choose what to bottle. I think it's
or in Holland, they took everything.
Yeah.
What about yourself, Toma?
So which cask do I think the pomegranate will be.
Yeah. Just checking. Maybe you had a different one in mind, but
he has to agree with me.
This is the first that you agree, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, we found an open bar yesterday, so everything is still closed here. So we found an open bar, so now we agree on everything.
That's great. And I know, Ian, you're not
That's right.
with any distillery right now, but if you were to bottle something for Australia, what would come to mind?
I mean, if I were still with my previous employer, maybe a cask of Fino Sherry, because that was Jim Swan and my favorite. We describe it as liquid tiramisu. So if you like tiramisu, that's the one. Yes, that's correct. So that is very nice, especially the nice creamy tiramisu type of character. That is really enjoyable. That is something that we drink, after meal, and then chat for 2 or 3 hours about what to do for the future and so on. So that brings back the memory as well. Yeah.
I was just going to ask Toma, can we play a game where Ian mentions a whiskey and you just pull it out for an interview?
Yeah, I have a lot of whiskeys here. I like whiskey. Before I started distilling or producing whiskey, I'm first a whiskey geek. So I have a lot of whiskeys and I buy a lot.
No, that's great. I think we're coming up to time soon, so I might just one very last question for everyone. Ian, you mentioned kind of what's next in your world with a new distillery. So maybe, and you said hopefully within the month you'll shed some news towards that. What about yourself, Patrick? Is there any special releases or something that's coming out very soon from Millstone?
Yeah, I'm bottling. I think this week we've bottled a 20-year-old from a PX cask, an unpeated 20-year-old from a PX cask. First fill PX, so very dark, very a little bit sweet. Yeah, it's going to be a very nice whiskey again.
Awesome. And Toma and Tal, anything new coming out in the distillery in the next few weeks?
Yeah, definitely. I think we just released the Element series, and now we're working on the release of the third tier of the Apex. So Tal will tell you when it will hit the shelves. But,
Apex is the result of some coffee talks in the morning of let's do this kind of crazy cask, or let's put cask at the lower place in the world. And I think that the first three ones are going to okay. It's a small batches, so it's not going to reach all the markets. But the Pomegranate is one of them. White wines from the mountains of Jerusalem, very good winery, Chardonnay cask, and kosher cognac cask from France, from La Rochelle, from Godet. Cyril Godet is a good friend of ours, so we have cask from there. We had some finishes. So this is the first three, and then we're gonna go crazy all along next year. So I don't know when it's gonna reach it. We're still waiting for the packaging, but all the rest is ready.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I've just got another question texted in from me. People, questions coming from all over. Patrick, you mentioned that sherry cask was your sort of go-to sort of finishing.
Obsession, my brother calls it. Yeah.
Passion, obsession. It's a fine line. But Ian, what's your kind of barrel type that you go towards? Is there one that you particularly like?
I think Fino sherry cask. That is something that I think is really special. And similar to Patrick, I'm obsessed with Fino sherry cask.
Hey, but Ian, you never had any problems with sulfur in Fino sherry casks?
No. Patrick, I'll email you later. Where to get the sherry cask from.
Our problem with sherry cask, because we are kosher distillery. It's not very hard to be kosher when you work in first of all in Israel. You just don't need to work on weekends. This is why we're not working today, and on Jewish holidays. But when you're using wine casks, the wine has to be kosher. I guess because there was wine in the Bible, if there was whiskey in the Bible, probably this list of regulations. So we don't go there. But when we source a red wine cask, it's going to be from one of the kosher wineries in Israel. But when we source a sherry cask, might be one kosher sherry brand. So we have a whole seasoning project in Jerez, which it's with the bodega and the cooperage and a rabbi from Barcelona. We actually producing our own sherry wines to make to season the cask for the sherry expression. So for us, it's a longer way. But Tomer, when you left there, asked what is your favorite type of cask?
Hey, but do you produce any sweet wines in Israel?
Yeah, we do have some
fortified wine.
Quality. The sweet wine, the quality is not that. Sometimes we don't really like it. We are going to play with some of them too.
There are some really good, and the cask gives really nice results for most of them. The Israeli fortified wines.
The port style Israeli wines. Yeah. They're not bad.
So we have some casks for the future with Israeli.
What was your favorite cask type, Toma?
My favorite cask is ex-bourbon. Just keep it simple. Makes the distillery character goes up, and you don't hide it. And I think a good spirit will go really good with ex-bourbon, just as is.
True.
Very true words. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for tonight. I think we set ourselves a limit of around 1 hour for everyone at home. I know people have got families to go back to and prepare for the weekend. But Ian, Patrick, Tal, and Toma, thank you so much for joining our live panel discussion tonight and chatting whiskey. I know some of you it's in the early mornings, but it's 8 o'clock here in Sydney. So cheers. The weekend begins for us, and hopefully in a few more hours to you guys, and we'll hopefully see each other in person. Next time.
Let's hope so. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Just end the live stream. You guys stay on for